Want more positivity in your life? Subscribe, turn on notifications, follow us, and all that techie stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, share, or give us a thumbs up. We are grateful to have you hanging out with us at Matt Logan Speaks.
Hey, welcome everybody to the podcast. I have Kenneth Bush. Let's just get that right out. Kenneth Bush is here.
Yes,
Thanks,
I am
man.
here. Thank you.
Dude, we were just chatting off camera, and I know we don't have all kinds of time today because you're a very, very busy guy, but I've really appreciated our conversation. I want to start there. And I asked you if we could just dig in. Let's dig in. Let's talk BLM. Let's talk Proud Boys, some organizations that are, we've got way out to the left, way out to the right. What's your opinion on some of that stuff being, you're running for office as a black guy?
Well, here's the deal, dude. Kenneth Bush here speaking. Running for House District 25B in Rochester, Minnesota, a place where I grew up and I love. We're just having a casual conversation here today. I'm thanking Mr. Logan for inviting me. I'm honored. To answer his question, I really haven't paid so much attention to that energy that's out there with Black Lives Matter and Proud Boys and things like this. I can only hear things. As a matter of fact, I actually never even heard of Proud Boys until a couple of weeks ago when our president said, stand back or stand down or whatever.
Yeah,
he said.
I believe what he said. So the question was about white supremacy, right? And he was directly asked the question. And again, this fact check me on this, people. Really seriously fact check it because that's what's so important. So many people are saying that the question was, do you denounce white supremacist groups, right? And so what he did say, and obviously when you're in an intense situation like that conversation, and I've been in some pretty intense interviews myself, and I understand you're really flustered, and there's no excuse, but what he did say was Proud Boys stand back and stand down, or however he worded it, right? And that's very different than saying, white supremacists, which the Proud Boys are not. Like one of the founding members is a mixed race guy. They allow gays in all of it. So how can that be white supremacists? But so he said for them to stand back and stand by. That's when you heard about them.
Yeah, that was my first time. That was my first time ever hearing of the Proud Boys. Like I said, I really don't pay too much. I'm running a positive campaign, and so in my mind, any racial issue, if I'm running as an American, although I'm a black American, born citizen, these issues are dear to my heart, obviously, because I have family members and friends and people that love me and folks of other races that I care and love about too, including my wife who's Korean and my mother and father-in-law are Norwegian. And they've known me since I was 10 years old. It's like growing up in Rochester as a kid for over 40 years here in Rochester, I really never had any racial issues. And so when I heard about Black Lives Matter, when I heard about Proud Boys, these are organizations that appear to want to actually, I'll start with Proud Boys since we're talking about them. You said that they had a mixed race, leader, and I think I saw something like that, right? Which actually made myself, as a matter of fact, decompress, although I wasn't pressed to make any sort of statement about it because they asked the president. They didn't ask Kenneth Bush, who's running for House District 25B in Rochester, Minnesota. And so I'm focused on Rochester, Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and what I can do for my community. Black Lives Matter. Now, that organization, obviously, Black lives do matter. I'm black. But I don't need to get on a soapbox and tell everybody, look at my skin color. What happened to Mr. Floyd was a tragedy, but no one ever talks about the things that maybe Mr. Floyd has done with his record and stuff prior to that happening. There are good law enforcement, there are bad law enforcement, just like there's good people and bad people. And, only God can judge at the end of the day. But I'm not really for any organization that really wants to divide American citizens, and I feel that Black Lives Matter does that because all lives matter to me. You know, and the money
Can I
behind
pause
the
you for a
organization,
second?
I don't know about.
Yeah, sorry. I just want
No
to pause
problem,
you.
dude.
I want to pause you for a second.
Yep.
I have heard rumors that that statement for a black man, as you've stated yourself publicly, that all lives matter, that I've heard the rumor that you've had some pushback on that. Is that true?
That is true. I have had some pushback on, you know, all lives matter because they do to me, as a matter of fact. Like I said, my wife is Korean. I have friends that are Vietnamese, Cambodian, Latino, all other races that I grew up with, that I've known my whole life, and their lives matter. Now, is it a tragedy that African Americans, some, have not had the benefit of others based on some generational pitfalls, you know, some injustices that they have opened themselves up to? Mm-hmm. You know, I really, that's a big weight to put on someone's shoulder. You know, for me to, you know, choose groups, choose one race over another race, you know, I just feel that that's not, from a Christian heart perspective, from where I'm coming from, I look at things through my faith first. Maybe not my politics, but I do look at it from a moral perspective, and I take a step back. And you know, the saying, and no pun intended, what would Jesus do? Mm-hmm. And that's the way that I think about it. And everybody deserves a chance to have an open mind. You know, it is freedom of speech. It you know, and freedom of expression. And I feel that you know, if there's a protest, it was intended to be a positive one, and I always wonder how things got so negative. And the way that I see my opponent and others playing this game is they're actually doing reverse racism. They're running on a race campaign of equity and inclusion when I'm actually living the equity and inclusion path. I'm walking the walk, and today with you, I'm talking the talk. All lives matter to me. Black lives do matter, but to push back a black man because he says all lives matter would be a failure. It would be a failure to not think in a positive light. And actually move forward in a positive way, where actually you can actually have some real impact, and that's what I've been doing. Last night I had a debate with my opponent on Med City Beat, and I stated to her that she would never be able to walk in my shoes, but I know that she feels my heart based on her campaign platform. That's all I'll say. I mean, I'm almost speechless with the rhetoric of Democrats, and I don't dislike. I have friends that are Democrats, but to run on a racial platform against what you're talking about building up, you're ultimately trying to tear me down when you're talking about building me up. So it's hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And you even said some things, you talked about off camera, of your ups and downs that brought you to a very humble place. You've had some big moments in your life that brought you to that place of humility that's allowed you to have this this character attitude, right? That's your character, that's your core. And I really appreciate that, because that's what's so important, is not dividing. It's about communicating. It's about having that dialogue and things like that. That's so crucial and important. However, the reality is the reality, and some people think that way, and they want to divide and win and conquer and all those different things, and the kind of, depending upon what your belief system, there's so many people going around right now saying that, the tribal mentality from evolution, and I don't believe in evolution, but they talk about, well, because the way we have evolved from the tribes and all this stuff millions of years ago, and that's why we're fighting and things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, if you realize that, then why don't we go ahead and not fight? If you can say that and realize that, how about you step outside of that place and not divide and conquer and all those other things? So I appreciate that character in you. You could very easily talk about some of the things that you'd be the first and making history and all this if you win. And I didn't know any of those things until we were talking about it off camera. Do you want to say that on camera or not?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's, and I'll say it from a place of grace. My candidacy means everything. My family, my friends, their parents, their kids, my community especially needs an example of what we can be and what our country truly is about. It's about giving a guy like me who grew up with nothing but love, youngest out of 11 kids here in Rochester. It's not about me, it's been about we, because without the people in the community helping me, teaching me, redeeming me, and having faith in what I'm trying to do and believing in me, I wouldn't have got here. So if I win this election, I'll be the third black man in Minnesota state history as a Republican to step foot in the Capitol. And I will be the only black Republican in the Minnesota state legislature, whether it be House or Senate, and one of only 8 minorities in the entire building. 2018, I got 7,452 votes against the 2-term incumbent. No one said it could be done, but I got 40% of that vote. He's retiring. This time it's an open seat. The wind is in my sails. I'm hoping that folks vote the Republican ticket, but I'm also hoping that if you don't vote for a straight line ticket, that you'd consider voting for me. Because, like I said, we're going to make history in Rochester, Minnesota. And it is a history where we will actually have a voice to talk about the division, the inequities, the potential for equity and prosperity to continue. That's what it's all about.
You've talked about your faith a couple of times so far. What do you think of how people said that Luke 15 is exactly the point of how Black Lives Matter? Did you see any of that?
Well, I'd like you to quote that scripture for me, first of all.
Well, I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly verbatim, but Luke 15 is where the shepherd goes after the one, right? Leaves the 99 and goes after the one.
Yep.
And that was the kind of you'd even say meme they made out of it. And that's the point right now of of Black Lives Matter and things like that. It's about Luke 15 and Jesus going after the one. Did you see any of that then?
I did not.
You didn't?
I
Okay.
did not. So
Sure.
I'm out
so
of the.
Can't.
I'm out of the. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure. Well, that's.
But if I had a Bible, I'd have to read it. But I can't compare scripture to destruction, and I won't do it.
That's exactly the point, because whenever your journey, your years of life has brought you to this place, right? So you have to take the whole context, right? The whole context is is where you've got the sum right now, is the things that you've had to go through and the different things. So we could take one of those very small moments in your life and we could go down a very negative path, and we could say, well, this is what Kenneth is about and things like that, right? Because that's a very small portion. Well, and that's what the scripture was in Luke 15. That's a very small portion. But in Luke 15, it starts out, let's Star Wars. You know the movie Star Wars.
A little bit.
You never seen it, but you've heard of it.
Yep.
Right? So if you took in that Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and you didn't tell the whole story, that wouldn't make any sense, right? And that's Luke 15. So the whole story, Jesus had a remarkable way of telling stories too, and obviously the parable, a heavenly meaning with an earthly story. So Luke 15 starts out with the parable of the sheep, leaves the 99 for the one. Then it moves on to the woman who loses the coin, and she has 10 coins or whatever and loses the one. You probably heard of it. And then it goes on to the parable of the prodigal son.
Yes, the prodigal son.
Yes. So what Luke 15 does is it builds all the way up to the point of, in all those parables, the point of is rejoicing the repentant sinner, right? It is not going after the one person that needs the help the most, because what did Jesus do? Jesus didn't go after the self-righteous.
So are you saying that Donald Trump needs help the most?
No, because that's not at all.
Okay, because I don't know where you're know where you're going with the scripture and Black Lives Matter. I don't understand, actually.
So where you're building up to this is you have Jesus going after the one repentant sinner. And you can't say that Jesus is going after the one that needs the attention the most, which was what they had said. Now, Black Lives Matter said, we need the attention right now because, we're the ones who are oppressed and all these other things that they go along and say. So the point of that parable is building up to is the person that says, hey, wait, I'm a screw up. I need some help. And is asking for those people to come along and save them.
I got to jump in.
Yeah.
You said oppressed. Black Lives Matter, mainly 99.9% consists of rich white people, or else those that feel guilty, white guilt. It's ridiculous. So I'm not going to sit here and shoot those black folks that are suffering in the foot. I won't do it.
And that's exactly the point.
But it's a joke.
It is a joke. I agree 100% with you. And that's the beauty of a podcast.
Yeah, man. You're talking to a guy that speaks the real truth, dude.
Yes. And
I'm outside of the politician mode right now. Now you're talking to the real dude.
Yes. And that's where it needs to be, right? Because I agree. There is so much focus on the wrong things. And it's a sleight of hand, right? It's a magician. In my opinion of Black Lives Matter is like a good magician.
But I'd like to talk about other things than Black Lives Matter because that's a waste of my time, actually.
Yes, great. No
I'm sorry,
problem.
bro.
No, not at all. But I think you're a truth speaker, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what people...
It's actually the energy to put the energy of my life into something that that I know that does matter. I'm not talking about the organization. But I'm an American first, and my job as a state legislator is not to put my positive energy, into something that is such a distraction from the real work that I intend to do.
I love it.
And I promised myself that I would never waste my valuable time in my life for things that are going to put me in a place where I have to even think negative.
I love it.
It's really not about Black Lives Matter, it's really not about race right now. What it's about is power. Here's the truth. If we were not in an election season, this probably wouldn't be as intense as it is. Black guys have been getting shafted for years. I'm here to tell you the truth, brother. Myself included. But don't feel pity for me, because I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. And that's win or lose, because you mentioned faith. Well, when you're son of the king, there's nothing but hope, always, even with empty pockets. And so, Black Lives Matter, Proud Boys, all these other organizations, show us the positive work, the good work, and you'll have my full attention. I don't respect anybody that wants to divide races, and I'm not a supporter of Proud Boys. I'm not a supporter of Black Lives Matter. They're not a part of my agenda, nor do I want to be associated with them. And I would never accept invitation to be associated with either organization. I'm about people, and I respect the military. I come from a military family. My brother's the first black person from Rochester in 1991 to go to Kuwait, Army Ranger. I've got 5 or 6 nieces and nephews and another brother that served in the military. I got a brother-in-law that was a Chicago police officer in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I appreciate people having a voice and opinion, with all due respect. But to want to riot and loot and tear down one another, I did not mention the black-on-black crime. Those are things that never got brought up. 50 people died the same weekend Mr. Floyd got killed. No one brought that up, including a little girl, a little baby. How come that didn't make national news? These lawyers need to calm down and quit chasing racial lawsuits. I myself, I feel like I had a defamation of my character recently when my opponent tried to put me out there, saying that I was, promoting gun violence, when that's definitely not true, and she tried to make money off of it. How despicable is that? So a local news station here aired a story, and if you have heard about it, you know what I'm talking about. I won't mention it because I don't want to put them on the spot, because it may be a pending lawsuit in the future after the election. They know who they are. But what's happening around the country is different from my story, but yet still the same disparity. I could go negative, but I won't do that today. But since you asked me and said that I was a true speaker, that's me coming from the heart. So I feel for those that feel left out in the cold, like the government hasn't worked for them. But the government should never be something that anybody should be dependent upon. It all comes down to family values, just like I mentioned last night in my debate. That's where it should all start. And if we can't start with the family values, then how are you supposed to respect your fellow citizen? That's where it's at. And it's a shame what's going on in the country right now. I'm saddened by it, because I always wonder, when I take off the suit and tie, am I going to get caught up in the mix, especially if the results of this election with Trump and Biden, it's a scary situation to think about as a black politician. But I'm running on hope, and I think that I'll accomplish this goal on behalf of my family, my friends, and my community. That's the most important thing.
And you're running on your character.
Absolutely.
Which is rare.
Flaws and all.
Right, which is rare, and I really appreciate that about you. I get messages and pushback from people on, well, why don't you debate them? Why don't you, that's not what this is about. It's about hearing the story, hearing the whole thing, the whole truth, what's on your heart, what's on your mind, all those different things. That's what's important.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with debating somebody. All that does is it's clickbait, right? All that is, they're trying to get more views and things by doing those types of things and being confrontational. When you're trying to throw in,
I'd be on national news if I,
yeah,
I'd be the next, Candace Owens if I really, really wanted to grind down and come hardcore. And I won't do it, but it's all the way in me.
Yeah, and I think that what each person has to do is they have to sleep at night, right? And I think you get good rest at night.
I do. I don't do it for money or fame. I do it to have a peaceful soul, a gentle heart, so I can wake up happy. Like I do every single day, I wake up happy every day for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm rolling on.
Well, because you don't attack. I haven't seen any
I'm rolling
attack
on
from
faith. Well, my opponents attacked me, and I was considered for attacking her by putting her picture out there when she had a Black Lives Matter ring around her photo. And I just said, this is my opponent. All lives matter. That's when I had to push back. Don't want to bring all that up again. But that was considered an attack. When I had a Facebook, attack on me, on my character, and I answered back to a gentleman, that was considered an attack. But these folks are out of control, out of touch. It's as a matter of fact, it's hilarious that they would be so bold to, with their groupthink and their sour souls, to come after someone that they put on a PowerPoint when they do their meetings and say that we need to help the guy. But in real life, they're trying to break the guy. And good luck, guys. Good luck.
That is powerful. Extremely powerful. It's very difficult when you're in a place of competition to not do what you can to tear down an attack. Here's the way I view it. I view it as you put the truth out there, right? The truth is your opponent had that Facebook post of the ring around with Black Lives Matter. That's not a lie, correct? That was there. I saw it. The next thing is that by you saying that all lives matter, that's truth. All lives should matter, which means me, your wife, my son.
Here's the deal. When people that I know are not racist, that I've sat at their kitchen table with as a little boy, parents, making me lunch, giving us popsicles, somebody, gave my nephew, I think what he said, 1970 something, 79, 80 or whatever, his first baseball glove. That happened all across my family. I've seen some of these people since I've obviously been running for office. Someone's parents reached out to me not too long ago. I took a picture with them and met them. I hadn't seen them in 30-something years. I was giddy like a little kid. To look at that man, you would think from perception on TV that he'd be an old white racist guy. Here's a guy that I love that would go into combat with me, not seeing me in 30 years. If he saw somebody jumping on me, he would jump on their back. Loves me like his own kid. He's not a racist. Should he feel like he's a racist every time he walks out his front door? That's wrong. And that's what is perceived out there right now, that people should be inferior of white men because they're all racist. That is a false statement, and that is a lie, and that is absolutely wrong. And for someone to think that that's right and put that out there is so disrespectful. When I hear a police officer tell me that their kid came home and basically called them a racist because they're a police officer, how do you think that officer, that parent felt? And the kid did not even realize that just minutes before, that black guy that's running for office has a sign in his mom's or dad's front yard. That's real life. That's real love. And for our kids, for this to get down to the level of our kids, to be so confused about race, whether their friend can come over or not now, is something that we just cannot have. We cannot have that type of energy going on anywhere in our country. And I won't stand for it. I will put all of my energy, all of my effort, all of my time, even if I lose this election, to make sure that we're building bridges and not barriers. We can't have it anymore. We need peace.
And we need that kind of truth, because I travel all over the country, and you're absolutely right. The stereotype of a white guy like me or my dad or whatever saying that you're white, you're racist.
It's pretty bad.
It's really bad, but that's not what's true.
That's not true.
All over the entire country, that is not the accurate narrative that should be preached.
It's wrong.
It's completely wrong.
And I feel
Are there racists? I'm not saying there's not racists. Right. Don't misunderstand that. There are. Absolutely there are.
There are.
But that is not the norm.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's something that we hear about in the news and no one will actually talk about. And it's hard to talk about that, actually. And I talk about it with ease because I don't have culture shock. I do not have culture shock. They talk about that energy. When other races come around, there's this energy in the air. I don't feel that. And I don't think that people feel that when I come around them. I don't feel that. And that's how come I'm able to survive in the jungle. We're just a sea of people with flaws and imperfections, and we're scared of what we don't know.
That's good.
Growing up in Rochester and having exposure to all races, and especially being the only one I think I was one of the only of like 10 black kids in the entire Rochester when Rochester had a 50,000 population. I was like one of only 10 black kids in the whole town.
Wow.
So I'm bred here, from the ground up pretty much, man. I blossomed from the ground up. The seed came and I blossomed from there. And
if there was ever a time for that type of racism, then was when people was back then.
It would have been back then,
right?
And so that's why I live my
case.
truth. Thank you so much, and that's why I live my truth today, because that's how I grew up. I still am Kenny, the kid, but I'm a man now. But I see through that lens, and that is a proper lens to live your life, to see your life in. It's a proper lens. And I became a Republican because of Michael J. Fox, Family Ties, Alex P. Keaton. I always wanted to be a Republican. That meant success to me. That meant family values to me. That meant stability to me. And when I lived a very liberal life between 17 years old and 23, and I buckled back in, I was able to see some of the imperfections, in some of the flaws, in some of the instabilities, in some of the negative and wrong paths that I thought I would probably end up being on for my life. And what I came back to was Kenny the Kid, remembering Alex P. Keaton, the Ronald Reagan Republican. Except now, because we are in the future, I not only bring diversity and inclusion, I bring a proper heart, a sound morality, and just, the things that we hope that America could be. I think that I stand for all of those things. And that's not to put myself on the soapbox. That's how I feel. And that's been a collective energy, a universal energy that I've gotten from my constituents, friends, and those that, quite frankly, the majority of folks that are voting for me that don't even look like me. I mean, if that's not a blessing, I don't know what is.
Yeah. There's no better way to wrap up than that. Kenny, thanks for being here. And I'm calling you Kenny.
No
because
problem.
That's how I see people too, right? As just through that same lens of people who were a kid, and I appreciate that.
No problem,
dude.
man.
We'll see you next
man.
time.
Thank you, man.